Thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar on hosting hybrid events. My name is Devin with ClubExpress. Today, we'll be talking about hosting hybrid events. Those are events where we are having two different types of attendance, both in-person attendance and virtual Zoom attendance, kind of like how we're doing today's webinar. It doesn't necessarily have to be Zoom. It can be any type of virtual attendance, but we'll be focusing on Zoom because that has come out to be probably the most used type of video attendance. We'll also be going over some of the other improvements that were made to the events module with the version 65 release a few weeks ago. But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and go over a few housekeeping notes. So you'll notice all of your mics are muted during the webinar. If you have any questions throughout, you don't need to wait to the end. You can put them right in the Zoom chat. We have Samantha monitoring the Zoom chat window to answer your questions throughout. And if there's any really pressing questions, we'll make sure that we answer some of those live at the end during a Q&A. A recording of this webinar will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel, as well as all of our previous webinars and training videos are available there as well. If you go to clubexpress.com, you'll find the calendar option in the upper right where you can see all of our upcoming webinars. If you'd like, you can register for those ahead of time. And when you do, there's a place for you to enter questions that you might have about that upcoming topic. And it lets us keep track of items that we want to display during that webinar. Additionally, if you go to our YouTube channel, we heavily recommend that you subscribe, not only to bump up our subscriber count, but also because it helps you keep up to date on all of our posted webinars and posted updates. And, we have things like version announcements. All of those are always posted to our YouTube channel. And so that way you can keep apprised of all of the updates that are happening with ClubExpress. And lastly, if you'd like to help people find ClubExpress, if it's useful to you and we want to help people find ClubExpress and see if it's useful for them, we would love it if you would leave a review for us on clubexpress.com/reviews. There's a few ways for you to leave reviews for us and help people out who are looking for the right software. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we'll be talking today. The first thing we're going to be going over is our new look. The events module got a bit of a facelift with the version 65 update. And so we'll go over some of the reorganized sections and how to navigate it with the new look. We'll also be looking at how to include video conferencing in an event that you make on the event calendar and the different settings that you can set up therein. We'll also go over how to set up hybrid registration on a single activity event. And there's a few different options for us to do that. And then we'll also talk about setting up hybrid event for multiple activity events. That gives us a little bit of more fine control over how many people are attending either in person or virtually. And then towards the end, we'll be focusing on the other enhancements from version 65, things like reordering the events on our grid view. So when you're looking at the grid view calendar, you can actually change the order that events show up in if you're an administrator. We'll also talk about the new update to our waitlist function where you can automatically process waitlists instead of having administrators manually send out those updates. There's also a new option, a new way to delete mass events. So if you have a large amount of events stored in your system and you want to clean that up, there is now a way to go in and bulk delete old events that no longer need to be on your calendar. And then the last thing is we'll talk about how you can set up event contacts that are no longer administrators or choose to make an event contact an administrator over just that event. So we'll go ahead and get started and we'll take a look at the new look of our website. There's three major changes to it. We've reorganized the management bar. We've obviously changed some of the looks. So all of the icons have been updated to our new style. And then we also changed the navigation for the different event creation tools. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our demo club real quick. So this is our Northwest Balloon Club, and I'm currently logged in as an administrator, everyone's favorite administrator, Martin Smith. And what I'm going to do to get to the control panel, to get to the controls for our events is I'm going to go to Control Panel. I'm going to go to the Website tab, and I'm going to click on Events down here. And this will take us to our Events Manager page. This page is mostly the same, but we will start to see changes when we look at the administrative section of our events. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to our hybrid event example. This is a few events that I've set up for demonstrations today. I will note right now, we do have other webinars that go over the actual configuration settings. So this is not going to be a ground up webinar on event creation. This is more just about the changes that we've made and how things are different from events before. We have previous webinars on both configuring events and the waitlist. If you need more details on some of those, you can start there and go look at our recorded webinars from there. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and click on the pencil from this page to go into the administrative screen of our hybrid event example. And you'll notice right away, if you haven't looked at it recently, our events screen has changed. All of the icons that used to be kind of in the upper right-hand corner have now gotten larger and easier to read and exist over in this big top bar right here. So we've got a few changes. What used to be the eyeball is now the back to the event button, and that would take us back to the view screen of our event. As before, we have registration, waitlist, reports. All of these configuration items are exactly the same as they were before. We've just moved them and given them a bit of a facelift. And then the biggest change to the way you navigate events is instead of those green arrows across the top and the big exclamation points, we've changed it to this tab-based sort. So you'll see any items that you've selected to be configured for your event are going to show up on the left-hand side over here. And then clicking on any of those will give you an at-a-glance view of what you've configured for that event so far. And then to make changes to any of these settings, all you have to do is click on this pencil icon. So if we wanted to make changes to, say, our location, we can click on location and click on pencil. And now we are editing the location of this event. And then from here, we can do the same. We can click on something else we want to change and click on that pencil. And now we are editing the email confirmations for our event. So those are the biggest changes we've made to the look and feel. All of the functionality is pretty much exactly the same. It's just a bit of a facelift and a bit of an easier navigation for the event creation process. So the next thing we're going to look at is actually how to include video conferencing in an event. All of our video conferencing settings for your event are going to be based on location. So instead of physical location only, we now include what is essentially a virtual location option. So when you're setting up your event initially, in the basic info screen, if you're having either a physical location or a virtual location, so either or of those options, you'll include this location option under the additional information. So you'll choose to check location and save that for your basic info. And once you've done that, you'll see this location option here on the left-hand side show up. If we go ahead and click on location and click on the pencil, this is our updated screen. You'll notice most of the physical location hasn't changed. All of this is relatively the same, but you'll notice there is now a new video conferencing section down below there. If you were to leave this blank, then video conferencing wouldn't be an option on the event. But once you fill it in, the video conferencing, the event will now know that it is an event with video conferencing as an option. Since we're talking about hybrid events today, we've actually filled in both. We have a physical location and a video conferencing option. If you were to use this Zoom link, it's actually the Zoom link for the webinar we're on right now. The location type up at the very top, if we're going to start at the top and go down, you'll see we have physical and virtual only, Zoom, WebEx, etc. If we check this virtual only, this is no longer a hybrid event. This event is now just a virtual event, and it will show up as so on the event information screen. We have three major options for what we can fill in terms of video conferencing. We have a video link. This is where you can plug in a Zoom or WebEx or Google Meets link. And then you are given a test option, and clicking on test will just visit that hyperlink for you to test out your video conferencing. So you can do things like try opening the Zoom link or open a Google Meets page or try to open a Cisco WebEx page. Any sort of video conferencing that allows you to send people a link will work in this section. You also have an option to fill in meeting ID and passcode. These are just informational. They are not functional. It's not going to pre-fill the meeting ID or the passcode into whatever video conferencing system you're using. What it will do is it will show this to members that have registered or people that are trying to attend this. So if your meeting ID, if your meeting requires a passcode, this will show up and then they can just copy and paste it to get into that Zoom or Cisco event. Below these, we have a few options here. We have show video link. We have two different options here. We have on event or after registration / payment. So if you click on event, that means anyone who can see the details of the event will be able to see this hyperlink and see the meeting ID and passcode. What that means is it doesn't require event registration in order to get to the video conferencing option. So if you're hosting an event that has a physical location, you're doing a hybrid event, you may require you may put in your description that you require registration in order to attend in person. But if you're allowing people to join the video conference, without registering, you can choose show video link on event, and then anyone can click this without having to register ahead of time. If you would like to require registration in order to get this information, you can flip this over to after registration/payment. And this will have two different options built into it. So if you are not requiring payment for your event, then as soon as someone registers and submits their registration and they go back to the video page, they will see this video conferencing link on that page. They will also receive a system email, and we'll take a look at that system email in a minute on how you can edit it, but they'll receive a system email with this information in it. So in their inbox, they'll have the Zoom information for that upcoming event. If you do require payment, this information will not show up until they submit payment for that event. So if they have not paid for their registration and they're currently in an unpaid status, they will not have access to the video conferencing information. It will require them to pay before that shows up. So just keep that in mind. If someone, registers for an event and you're not intending to charge them, like you're going to comp them at or something, you need to make sure to record their payment. If they send in a check for an event, you need to record that payment before they'll be able to see this information, and before that information will be emailed to them. Once we're done with this section, so we're going to be hosting a hybrid event, has both in-person functions and video conferencing functions. We're going to say this is complete, and we'll save this page. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that email that goes out with that video link is set up correctly. So I'm going to go hop over to my control panel. I'm going to go to communications. The system email that sends the video link to event registrants is located in your system emails page. So this is control panel, communications, system emails. If we go here and scroll down, it'll be near the bottom. It's going to be under event video conferencing. I believe it's, yep, there it is right there. Event video conferencing email. So this is the follow-up email to registrants with video conference information. So once someone registers for an event and is paid, or registers if no payment is required, this is the email they will receive. If you would like to see a test of that email, you can click on this icon right here and choose to send an email, and it'll fill in your email address, or you can manually enter an email address that you would like it to go to and send a test to see what that email looks like. Or if you want to make changes to that email, you can click on this pencil right here. And this is what the email looks like by default. This is just the content of the email. This is not exactly what it will look like. Anywhere where you see these little tilde icons with information around it, that is the autofill information. So it's not going to look like this in the email. This information will get filled in. So event details, additional info, all of these with the little squiggles around it is going to get replaced with the information from the event. And then the Zoom information is going to be included in the event location information right there, and they'll be able to click the link from this email. But if you wanted to change the, this message contains important video conferencing information, if you wanted to make that a little bit more you can come in here, change the way this email is worded, maybe change the contact if you wanted to, and that will change it for all events that have video conferencing information. And so that's just a way to make the emails feel a little bit more personalized. So now I'm going to go back to our event, and we're going to talk about the registration settings. So if we go back to our events, I'm going to go to the website tab, events, and once again, I'm going to go into my hybrid event example. Now I want to talk about registration types. So when you're setting up an event that has a video component to it, and you want people to register either way, what we can do is we can go into who can register, and you can actually have different prices based on how you are registering people. So one thing I see a lot of people not necessarily always recognize is that you can have both, you can have multiple types of the same registration. So both of these are only available to active members, but I've just given them different names. And so someone can sign up for virtual attendance, and I've set that fee as $0. And someone can also sign up as an in-person attendant, and I've set that fee at $10. So because maybe we have food at the in-person event, or it's at some sort of restaurant or something, we can set a price if you're attending physically, and then we can set it for free or maybe a reduced price if you're only visiting online. So to set that up, all I did was I chose one of our various registration types. I can do active members. I can make this available to non-members, or if I didn't even want to limit it at all and I want to open it up to both members and non-members and guests, I could even say everyone. And then I just simply entered, virtual attendance or in-person as the display name. I set my price and hit add. And that is how I created these two different options. So now when someone goes to register for this event, if I go back to my event and I click on my register now option, I can go to sign up a member, and you'll see I have two different options: in-person attendance, $10, virtual attendance, $0. It will be important that when you're running reports for your event, or if you're tracking attendance, there are reports that will include the type of registration someone made. So if someone registers for virtual attendance and then tries to show up in person, I would recommend beforehand you run one of our reports. So if we go back to our control panel for our event example, under reports, you can run your event registrations or event registrants alphabetized. This report will give you the information of what type of registrant they are, so that you can see, hey, sorry, you actually were only registered for online. You actually need to pay if you're going to be here in person. That will give you that kind of information to make sure that the correct people are attending in the correct way. With single activity events, the way this current event is set up, there is not a way to limit only 10 people can come in person and then everyone else is online. There is a way to do that if we were going to do a multi-activity event. So I've actually made another event. I'm going to back out to my event manager screen, and here is a multi-activity hybrid event. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this. And the way you set up a multi-activity event, when you go to your basic info, when you are setting up an event and you want to set it up as a multiple activity event, under your basic info, right up front, there is a toggle between single and multiple. Switching this to multiple will change it to a multiple activity event, which will then give you the ability to configure different sub events within that one event. And so now I'm going to go back to where I was originally and show you how that is done. So if we go to our multi-activity hybrid event, once I set up the location, and you'll see here, I've got my video link set up. I've got my physical in-person set up. Under who can register, I've got my same in-person and virtual attendant, but you'll notice the prices aren't listed here. That's because with a multi-activity event, the prices are actually listed per activity, and we have fine detail control over each of those activities. So if I go into my activities and items section, I can click on this pencil to look at and make changes. And this is another place where we have significantly changed the look and feel of the editor. It used to be just rows of information. Now we've got these cards for each activity. And then inside each of those cards are new refreshed icons to make those changes. So you'll see I have virtual attendance and in-person attendance. And then I've made two additional breakout room options for different virtual types of attendance. And I'll talk momentarily about what I did to make those. So up first, I will talk about my in-person attendance. What I did is I went in, I created this activity. So if you click new activity, you simply give it a name, state when it's taking place. You can always leave it as visible to all registrants if it's something that people can actually register for. So I named it in person. And then for my registration and fees, I have said, show this on the screen, yes. And I've made sure that it says, yes, it is required. You cannot remove it. What this does is when someone is registering for this event, if this option is available to them, they cannot unselect it. And then I've set a capacity of 200. What this will do is this means my in-person attendance only is limited to 200 registrants. The rest of this is pretty much the same as the normal type of event creation. So capacity, registration and fees, all of these options are pretty much the same for your normal event registrations. But the important thing is that I can limit in-person attendance here And to stop virtual attendance from choosing this option, if I go to the Who Can Register section of this activity, I have only included in-person attendance. So what that means is it's only an option to in-person attendance. I have not included my virtual attendance option intentionally, meaning there is no way for virtual attendants to choose to try to attend in person. So when an in-person attendant registers for this event, it is required and they cannot unselect it. And this is the only thing available to them. And it will charge them $10. This is where I set that fee for it attending in person, and I can save this. And then for my virtual attendance, I've done exactly the opposite. Registration fees are still, yes, it's required, but instead for virtual attendance under Who Can Register, I've added my virtual attendant. But this one, you'll notice, does not have a capacity limit. So what that does is any number of people can register to attend virtually. So when I'm registering for this event, I can choose virtual attendant, and there is no limit to how many people that can join, via Zoom. If you have like a professional Zoom account, you can host thousands of people. There's no problem with opening that up to as many people as you want, but maybe your venue is limited in terms of in-person capacity due to, certain limitations going around. So what that looks like when you're registering. So I'm going to go back to my event page. I have the option, if I say register now, and I choose to sign up a member, I have the virtual option and the in-person option. If I choose in-person, my only activity that appears is my in-person. And this checkbox that normally lets you choose which activities you're registering for is grayed out. I cannot unselect that. And that will register me for the in-person activity. On the other side, if I register as a virtual attendant, I have a few different options. I have my virtual attendance that is free, and it is checked, and it cannot be unchecked. And then something I did is I created two more activities, and I'll touch on those in just a second. I created two more activities that are optional, and I can say I want to join breakout room 2. So if you have like separate discussions, if you wanted to, attend the board meeting or attend a discussion about a new building or something like that, some sort of sub virtual attendance, you can have those be options to those people as well, and they can attend different breakout rooms. So that's really useful if you're having a virtual event and you wanted to make it available to people that are attending. You wanted to make options for them to attend different Zoom meetings. You can do that here. And what makes that possible is if we go to our activities and items and edit this page, I've simply made two more virtual attendance options. They're just copies. I just use the copy function on the virtual attendance. And then under registration and fees, instead of making it required, I've made it optional. You do have the option to pre-select it, but then they can deselect it. But I've just gone ahead and made it optional, again, with no capacity. And then similarly, under Who Can Register, I've only entered the virtual attendance since these are Zoom meetings. And each individual activity, if you go to the location of that activity, can have its own video conferencing information. So each activity can have both a physical and virtual piece of information, as well as only showing that based on registration and payment. So this lets you have multiple Zoom meetings within one event that people can register for. So if you're having like a large conference with panel type options and people want to go watch different panels on a large conference style event, you can limit those and break those out into different rooms so that people can just register for the different meetings that they want to be a part of. So that is our event configuration for multiple activities. This gives you a lot more fine detail control over who can register for what and different prices. And I think the most important thing in doing it in multi-activity is if you needed to limit attendance for in-person, this is the only way to limit in-person and not limit virtual attendance. Because if we did this with a single activity event and limited attendance, it would be total attendance combined between in-person and virtual. Whereas with this multi-activity option, we have the ability to split that out, and we can do, 1,000 people can register virtually, and only, maybe 100 can register in person. All right, I did want to touch on a few of our other version 65 event enhancements. So one thing I do want to show you is in our calendar, A lot of you who are administrators and do a lot of actions on the calendar might have seen a new icon. So this is only going to show up in the grid view of the calendar. If you are defaulting to the list view, this won't necessarily apply to the list view. But in the calendar, when you have multiple events taking place on one day, all of those events are always going to show up in the order of the start time. So if this event starts at 5 a.m. and this event starts at 8 a.m. and this event starts at 6 p.m., all of those are going to show up in that order. But now we've given you the ability to reorder them in terms of priority or however you want to reorder your events with this little icon. This green arrow icon is only going to show up for administrators. People who are not administrators on your website will not see this icon show up. But if we click on this icon, it's going to give you our display sequence option. So we see all of the 3 events that are taking place on this day, and we can come in here and say, actually, I want our safety committee meeting to be top priority. We want people to see that first. And so if I save, now the events on this day have reorganized themselves into the safety committee meeting, being first, and then our ballooning without borders are below that. So that's a useful tool for those of you who need to reorganize your calendar to kind of prioritize certain events. And once you make that change, it applies for anyone else who is viewing the website. Once they visit this page, they'll see it in whatever order you set. Another major change we've made to our website, to our events module, is if we go back to our events manager page, if we go look at our hybrid event again, on the registration and fees section of any of your events, if you have an event that has capacity required, several months ago, we added the ability to have a wait list. It actually might have been almost a year ago that we added this functionality. But something that was with the wait list is once your event fills up, and you start adding people to the wait list, if someone cancels and opens up a slot, it is up to, or it used to be up to administrators to go in and say, hey, all of you on the wait list, there is now a slot available, and they would have to manually send that email out to those people to then try to register for the event before it would be open to the public again. And something that a lot of people asked for right away was, hey, can we do that without the need for administrators to keep such a close eye on it? And so we've actually added an automatic option. So now you have the option to do it manually if you wanted to retain that control, but we do also now have the automatic option. So what will happen now if you choose the automatic option, if your event fills up, and then you have people on the wait list and someone cancels, right when someone cancels, it's going to automatically generate an email to those that are on the wait list to let them know that they can now try to fill in that spot. The waitlist hours option still applies to that. So if you set 0, then there's no statute of limitations on that. There's no limitations on when they can register using that link. But if you say, you have 5 hours from that time, then once they get that email, that link will expire 5 hours later. So that still applies. It just changes how that email is sent out. It doesn't need to be done by an administrator manually, or does the system automatically take care of it? I think a lot of people will get a lot of use out of that automatic option. It's something that a lot of people asked for right when we came out with the waitlist. So now we have that ability. Another option that we added is our event cleanup tool. So we used to have a bulk delete option where you could only say, hey, I want to delete all events from this date to this date, and it would catch everything. And it just really wasn't very intuitive if you only wanted to delete certain events. So if you have like us at ClubExpress on our demo sites, we have a lot of events because we set up a lot of tests and demos, and we just really fill it up. And if your organization has a lot of events that have gone in the past, but you want to clean up your calendar, we've added a new option. If you go to your configure option and go to mass event delete right here, what it will do is it will give you a screen where you can look at your events in a list like this with a checkbox on the left-hand side, and you can go through and either check all or just check individual events and delete them all simultaneously. Instead of having to go into an event like these and individually click on these trash cans, and normally when you click on the trash can, it gives you the option, do you want to delete, do you want to archive, are you sure? And you check yes, yes, yes. Instead, you can go in, check a handful of events and say delete all, and it will get rid of all of those events from your calendar. It is important to note that once you do delete the events this way, there is no recovering them. So this should really only be used for old events that do not need to be seen anymore. If you're just cleaning up, if you have like a large backlog of events that you just really don't want on your calendar anymore, it's just a cleanup tool for getting rid of that previous information. And then the last big change that came with version 65 is the ability to control event contact administrative controls. So if we go into our event example one more time, we've always had this event contacts option. So if I go into edit my event contacts, you'll see right now I've got 2 event contacts. Long ago, it used to be we only had an option to add 1 event contacts, and now we've got the option to add multiple contacts to any individual event. That change came with an update a couple years ago. But our recent update now gave us the ability to add and remove administrative rights. So it used to be that if you were an event contact and you went to the event, you would always have admin controls to everything on that event. So what I'm talking about when I say admin controls, when we're looking at our main event page, we do have this option that says show admin options. This is only going to show up to administrators and those who are event contacts with admin control. If we want to limit access to a site, once we go to show admin controls, we can go to our event contacts and we can say, I only want certain event contacts to have control over this section of the site. So right now here I can see I've got Jenny Cho. And if I click this pencil to edit, you'll see I've got Jenny Cho. I can list her responsibilities in the event. So I could say she's in charge of catering. And because she's only in charge of catering, she doesn't need to have access to controlling the wait list or adding registrants. We just want to list her contact information as catering, but we don't want to give her control. So we can uncheck this admin rights option. And then we can say, we do want to show her email so that people can see what the menu is. Maybe we don't want to show her phone information because we don't want people just calling the catering. We don't necessarily need to notify her on registration. And we don't need her to be the primary contact. She's only in charge of catering. And I hit update. And now she will no longer have access to this screen. She can no longer, change things on the wait list or reports. She's just listed as a contact for the event. But maybe Judy here is our event coordinator. And she is actually in charge of all of the aspects of the event. She's not a full administrator of the website. She doesn't need things like, the money tab of the control panel or anything like that. She just needs to be able to make changes to this one event because this is one event that she is in charge of. So I can go ahead and say Judy Buckner gets admin rights to this event. And I can say, since the event coordinator, she does list her phone and her email. And because she's running this event, I do want her to be notified by email whenever someone registers. And she's running this event, so she is our primary contact. And so now when Judy logs in and goes to this event, she will see this show admin options, and she will have access to all of these controls for this event. So those are some of our biggest changes to our events module that happened during version 65. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions about this because I did, try to cram a lot of information into one webinar. So Sam, do we have any pressing questions? I know I went through that a little bit fast.
Yes. So I will start with tiny questions first and bigger questions later. So the first question, I didn't actually know the answer to this. Can the waitlist now notify waitlisted people if you increase the capacity of the event as opposed to just when there's a cancellation?
At the moment, no. If you increase the capacity, it goes back to being an option for anyone to register. The waitlist doesn't do that just yet. We've had that asked for several times, so it's something we are very, very aware of and are actually working on changing. But at the moment, right now, no. When you increase the capacity, it just opens it back up to the public again.
Okay. And a couple of things to go through one more time. Can you show the tag options that are available in the event system emails?
Yes. So if we go back to our control panel and go to our communications section and go to system emails, we can take a look again at our event video conferencing. So these are the preloaded tags. We've got event title, the date and time that it is starting, your registration type. So if this is sent to you, it'll let you know what type of registration you have. So if you're with the way we've set up our events, if you get this email, it'll say, video only, video conferencing registrant, virtual registrant. I'm so sorry. That'll be your name. This is the registrant type. So this would say video virtual registrant, and this will say your actual name. So for my example, it would say Devin. Event location, this is where your both physical location and Zoom location information is going to show up. Event details, this is the just generic details of the event. So anything you put in your short description of your event. Additional info, this is something I'm actually going to hop over to. I'm going to close this just real quick and open a second tab, because we'll talk about that as well, because it shows up in this email. So if we go to our event and go to our emailing section, anything we put in additional email or additional info, that shows up in any of our event emails that have that tag. So additional info here, it'll fill in any information you manually put in here. So you can put in information that you want included in those system emails, and it'll show up there. And then the contact names, this is just whoever your primary event contact is going to be listed as. You can also choose additional tags up here. You've got your standard club fields and then your registration fields. Video conference link, meeting ID, and passcode. If you wanted to break those into individual links, you could swap the event location for that so that people don't get the physical location. But if I remember correctly, this will include both physical location and the Zoom information.
The second thing, if you could review the way that you set up your registrant types for a single activity event that had the option to either register as an in-person visitor or a virtual visitor.
Absolutely. So if we go back, I'm actually already on the correct event. So if we go to our who can register section, this is where we change our registrant types. And I can actually show you something. I can actually just expand on this. So right now I have two options for members. If I wanted to open this event up to non-members, both in person and virtual, the way I would do that is I would choose who can register. So I'm going to say any non-member is allowed to register. And I'm simply going to do copy and paste that. Any non-member is allowed to register for in-person attendance. And I'll say, since you're a non-member, you're not going to get a discount. It's going to cost you $15 to attend in person. And then I'm also going to add a non-member option for attending virtually. And I'll go and say any non-member again, and I'll say virtual attendance. And then I can say this is free. It's always free to attend, virtually. And there we go. And so now we have the option for non-members to attend this event as well. So it's very simple to set up for a single activity. I will again mention there, if you're going to limit attendance to an event, so I'll go ahead and save this and allow for non-members. And now we see all four: in-person attendant for members, in-person for non-members, virtual for members, and virtual for non-members. If I go to my registration and fees section, and I edit this option, right now my capacity is set at 100. Because it is a single activity event, the event only recognizes, this capacity as being met, whether they register virtually or in person. So the single activity option for virtual events like this, if it's a limited capacity event, is not ideal. If you have no capacity limit, then you can just set it to no, and that's fine. And you can just leave it, you can just leave that alone. But if you do have a limit, just keep in mind that if 100 people were to register virtually, then the event would then be closed and no one would be able to register after that point, because the capacity has been met, but no one has signed up for in person. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, and there were a couple of other questions that came in that I'll just answer live. So when someone registers is there a calendar sync option so they can put it on their calendar? So if you could show what that add to my calendar button looks like. So that's something that's included with every single event that you create. And it just creates a standard calendar file that if you are on a mobile device, my phone has both Outlook and Google Calendar on it. So my phone asks me, which calendar do you want to open this with? On a computer, it's going to probably open it up for you in Outlook. So there isn't a way to sync an entire calendar. So there isn't a way to download all of the events on a club calendar to a user's device. That is something that we've suggested to our developers. Another question, what triggers the video conferencing system email? So that email gets sent as soon as either the user has registered if the event doesn't have a fee. If the event does have a fee, the video conferencing email gets sent once that fee has been paid. Or, of course, if your user is or your registrant is sending in a check once you've applied that payment. And
there is one thing I will show that just reminded me, I should show what it looks like. So if you allow for registration, or if the event is open to the public virtually, you can say show video link on event. And once we save that, anyone that visits the event page, you'll see here's this link to event. That's what our virtual information will look like. So they'll have this link. It's a hyperlink. They can just click on it to open the Zoom meeting. And then if they need the meeting ID manually or a passcode, that information will show up there as well. And again, if you leave any of this blank, it just simply doesn't show up.
And a couple of really interesting questions are coming in now. How do you allow members to register prior to non-members for an event that allows both? So you could, I guess, adjust the visibility at any point in time. Would that be the way that you would do it?
Yeah, I think that's how I would do it. So let's say we're going to allow members to register first. What I would do is I would come in here, and for all of my non-member registration types, I can say admins and coordinators only. And what this will do is it'll turn visibility off for it, meaning you have to be an administrator or a coordinator in order to choose this option. And obviously, if you're a non-member, then you're not an admin or a coordinator. And so you will not see that option. This is somewhat manual. There's not a way to set like a timer for this. But so you could set up the event like this for a week, and then a week later, all you have to do to change that is come in here, click on this pencil, change this to everyone, and change this to everyone. And now the event is available to non-members. So 3 or 4 clicks and you can turn that on and off. But like I said, there's not a timer for that.
Yes. And let's see. So does ClubExpress have a webinar with strategies for conducting a hybrid meeting? We do not, but that's a wonderful suggestion for a future webinar topic. So we will go ahead and work on that and add that to our upcoming list. When sending follow-up emails to registrants, like a post-event survey or sending out slides, can you differentiate between in-person and virtual registrants in your distribution list? So I guess it would likely depend on the way that you've set it up. I think that it would be really easy with a multi-activity event, because you would be able to say, I'd like to email folks who registered for the in-person activity, or I'd like to email folks who have registered for the virtual activity. I don't know if there would be an easy way to do that with a single activity event. And unfortunately, you can. Okay.
You can choose. So I'm sorry, my events on our demo site is really acting up today. If you were to go into your emailing function, there is an option to email registrants of a certain type. So you could say, I want to email, all of my, under who can register, I can say, I want to email all of my in-person active members and in-person non-members. And then separately, you could email your virtual attendants for both members and non-members. So you can differentiate, by registration type when you're sending those emails, but so it's definitely possible.
Okay. And another question, is there an option to include an add to calendar link in the registration confirmation email? I don't think that is in there, but
no.
So we can go ahead and submit that as a suggestion to our developers. Also, Robin had a suggestion that I really liked, a system email synced with a member's birthday to wish them a happy birthday. We'll definitely submit that to our developers. Is there a way to set up a registration only event where non-members can request to attend, then be approved or declined? That's a thinker.
That's a thinker. Yeah, I don't think we have that capability just yet. I guess managing that would be interesting. You could set up, there's a few creative ways you could do that. You could set up like a secondary kind of like holding event. You could set up an event called, non-member registration for whatever event. And then as people register for that, if you approve them, you could manually register them for the event at large. So if you were to say, if we say, for example, on this event right here, if we say any non-member, this is only available to admins and coordinators. What I can do, and I'll go ahead and do that for our other one here as well. If you're an administrator, you can go into registrations and say add registration and sign up a non-member. And there's my options for in-person and virtual. And I am signing up and filling in their information here manually. This is something that's not available to the non-members because I set it to admin only. And so you could, as you approve people, manually register them, but we don't have like a holding status on an event on its own at the moment. So it would be kind of like a two-step process.
Okay. Yes, that's so there definitely is a way to do it. It's just not automatic. But that is a suggestion that we will certainly send to our developers. And is there a way to post PowerPoint slides to members only? And you can, of course, use our document library to host those PowerPoint slides. Devin, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah. So if you go to your control panel, under the website option, there is a document library, and you can create a folder. And when you're creating a folder, you get the option of visibility for that folder. The default one is all users public, but you can make a folder that's visible to members only. And so we can call this, member slides, create that members only folder. And if we view our documents from here, we can add documents to this page, and anything we add here will be visible to members, but this folder will not show up for people that are not logged in.
And Zoom videos, can they be posted to members only? So that brings up an interesting point, which of course is that there's a size limit to videos that you might want to host directly off of your site. So what we're talking about is when you are adding in a media widget on a custom page or even your homepage, you have the option to add a video file directly to the page. You also have the option to embed a video on the page. Now, if you are adding the file directly to the page, there's a size limit of 100 megabytes, which really does not get you very far in terms of a video. So especially, with hour-long webinars or something like that, your best option is going to be embedding a video. And in that case, you can, of course, use any video hosting site that you'd like. Our personal favorite is YouTube. And if you're concerned about security, there are a couple of different options that YouTube gives you with how your videos are displayed to people. For example, an unlisted video means that only folks with the link can actually view it. So that might be a decent option. But also you have the ability to edit the visibility of page rows on your custom pages as well. So you can embed the video in a page row that is only visible to members.
Yeah, exactly. So this is I'm just looking at a simple custom page. So you could make a page with all of your videos on it, but if you had videos that you wanted to be members only, this little icon here on the left changes who can see what pieces of content. So right here, I can change this, and this solid figure with a little lock icon means members only. And I've put a media embed placeholder here. So once you're editing this, you get this nice little external video option. And all you have to do is go to YouTube. And when you click on the share option on just about every video on YouTube, you'll see there's an option called embed. And once you place in, you just copy and paste that code in. You don't need any HTML knowledge at all or anything like that. You just copy it from YouTube, paste it here, and hit apply. And that video will show up on this page. And because we've set this row to members only, when someone visits this page, it'll only show up to members. And so that's a way you can put maybe this content on a page that says like member benefits or member tutorials. And then you could maybe put a message on that page as well that says like, log in to see more of our videos or something of that sort.
Another question came in. Page row has future visibility. Is there any counterpart for future visibility for events or for activities in a multi-activity event? For events, yes, absolutely. For specific activities, I don't think so.
No.
But that is something that we can submit to our developers.
So yeah, so for the future visibility, if we go to our basic info and we click on this pencil, you have your visibility option right here, and you can choose who the event is visible to: members, everyone, interests, committees, all of that sort of options. If we choose everyone or any of our visible options, you see this date visible, and you can plug in a date and say, actually, I don't want this to show up on the calendar until next Friday. And once you save this page, the morning of this date, the event will show up on the calendar, but before that day, it will not be on the calendar.
And as an extra little nugget, remember that visibility settings are completely different from your registration settings. So the event might be visible to everyone, but you may have also post-dated registration. So, you might put an event on your calendar to sort of act as a teaser or get everyone ready. Maybe put a note in the description that registration is going to open up in a couple of weeks, and then backdate your registration to maybe be pushed out a couple of weeks after the event is on your calendar to give people, time to get jazzed about the future events that you're hosting.
Yeah. So, and as well, when you go to your registration and fees section, so if we click on our pencil here, we can make it visible to people, and we can set an open date, meaning people can't register. So if we wanted it to be visible today, but we don't want people to register until this date, we can say, and on this one, we can actually give a specific time saying, on that Friday at 5 p.m. or maybe 6 p.m., we want to give everyone a chance to, get home on a Friday before we open up registration for this upcoming event. That way people can get excited for it and see it on the calendar and take a note, and the registration open time will show up on the event. And so that people can, mark it in their calendar saying, hey, I want to make sure that I show up. If you've only got, like 15 or 20 spots, or, it's a very highly contested but limited event, you can set a time for people to begin registering for that so that they can, get excited and get pumped to go try to be first in line for that event.
The questions have died down. These were great questions today. This was an exciting webinar.
Yeah, I figured the question section might be big. Our event webinars tend to be kind of full of questions, and they're great because events is probably our biggest module and most complex module. So there's probably dozens of hours of content we can squeeze out of it. This is just focusing on hybrid events, and we've already gone pretty much our full hour. So if anyone has any other questions, please shoot them over to us. We'll go ahead and wrap this webinar today. I want to say thank you. If you have questions, please email them to support@clubexpress.com or give our support folks a call. And they'll be happy to, help and answer any other questions. I know, especially right now, as things are kind of, half and half, a lot of people are comfortable going in person. And also people are very comfortable using Zoom now. A lot of hybrid events going into the future are probably going to be taking place. So this is something that we really want to focus on as people are kind of changing the way events happen. I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for attending today. And as always, we'll see you. I think we've got 2 more webinars this month, next Wednesday and the Wednesday after. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much.